Okay. Okay. So again, thanks everybody for making this happen. Thanks for your support and help. Without your help, none of this would happen. Tonight we have two speakers. Firstly, we have Sandeep Schwab, the founder and CEO of myStartUpCFO, to give an overview of financial planning. Also, we have Smith from Vironex Health to talk about the real-time remote monitoring systems. Tonight's event is going to be live streaming on Facebook and YouTube as well, so people are also going to watch there too. Okay, let's get it started. Our first speaker is Sandeep Schwab. Sandeep brings 30 years of experience spanning finance, investment analysis, strategic planning, and technology, including the last 15 years of leadership experience as CEO in fundraising over $100 million accumulated in a strategic and tactical financial management. He has worked with hundreds of startups from a pre-revenue to a multi-million-dollar revenue. He is the founder and the CEO of myStartUpCFO. Today, he is going to give an overview about the importance of the financial planning and how to keep a good financial records. We know which is super important for most of the companies, especially for startups. Sandeep, the floor is yours. You can get started whenever you want.
Thank you. Right. I am online. I assume you guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So guys, my name is Sandeep Schwab. Thanks, Mike, for the introduction. I run a company called myStartUpCFO. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. My expertise is looking after money, raising money, and making sure you don't run out of it. So we've been around a while, and we've done a lot of research in what makes startups work and not work. And after deep scientific research, we figured out one thing, that companies that run out of money die. So rule number one, make sure you don't run out of money. And this chapter or this class will talk about how to make sure of that in terms of good planning and good books and good financial processes. So that's what the topic is going to be for today. First of all, you need to know that do you even have a company? A company is a entity which is not just your passion or not just an idea that you have. A company is not a hammer looking for a nail. A company is a self-sustaining entity that can sell something for a higher price than it takes for it to produce. That's what, in short, a company is. For that, you need to know, what are the customers you have, what is their problem that you're solving. Can you solve it in an efficient way, more efficiently than it's being solved in the market today? And by efficiently solve, I mean solve it for a lower price than other people are solving, and sell your solution at a price which is higher than what it costs you to produce. That's what efficiency means. So you have to understand a few basic, rules of economics. Obviously, the whole business of whether you're creating a software or a medical device or you're creating a new drug, the mathematics of all of that is exactly the same. And you need to be able to sell it for a higher price than you are producing it. Of course, in the process, there is investment cost. That's where you have to raise money, et cetera, et cetera. We'll go through all of that in a minute. But that's what a company is. Can you scale it? Can you sell it at a profit? And in all of this, while the science part and the operational part and day-to-day hiring, firing people is an important part, but a financial plan is what is the foundation on which the rest of the business will stand. And this is what you need to have. This session will talk of what a financial plan is, how to make it, etc. And this is what all of you, irrespective of your educational background or your desire, what you want to do, you need to know the basics of financial planning, and that's what I'm going to talk about. In short, cash is king, which is what I said first. If you run out of money, you're dead. Make sure you have the cash. What is a financial plan? Financial plan is nothing very scary. It is a very simple income statement, balance sheet of a company for the next n number of years. Right? Income statement, balance sheet, while it sounds all very complex, it is nothing but money in, money out. Where will the money come from? Where will the money go? Right? A financial plan is a roadmap for the company. If I ask you to travel from San Francisco to Boston or Boston to Austin, you have to tell me what roads you're going to take, where will you stop, when will you have lunch, when will you have dinner, where will you stop for gas, when will you take a break, if it's a 4-day journey, what hotels will you stay in, what will that hotel cost. So it's a roadmap, a detailed roadmap to get you from point A to point B. That is what a financial map is, a financial plan is. It's a financial roadmap of the company. And how do you make a good financial plan? And what is a good financial plan? So rule number 1, there is nothing wrong or right about any financial plan. Nobody can tell you that your financial plan is wrong. Every business's financial plan is different. Yes, you can copy a template, you can take some advice, but your financial plan is your financial plan. It is your company's financial plan, because your idea requires a different kind of a foundation. Now, there are some certain rules. People say a software company takes this kind of money and a hardware company takes this, the medical device this. If you have if you need FDA approval of level 1, level 2, the monies are different. So there are some general rules, but the specifics of your company are very specific to you. So every company will have a different requirement. So there is no right or wrong answer, as long as you can justify your answer with good reasoning, good practical reasoning. A financial plan, as I said, is a roadmap from A to B, but also it is not actually the picture of it. If I may draw an analogy, what a map shows to the real life, that is what a financial plan shows to the real company. I don't want to know every nitty-gritty, every pothole between San Francisco and Boston. I do not need to know every right or left, every little detail of the road. I just need to know, okay, I have to start at Highway 80, then I'll reach Denver with that, then I'll take a left turn, then I'll take highway whatever and get to Boston. Right? That is what the general high-level picture you want. Similarly, a financial plan is a high-level picture. If it's too high level, if I'm sitting on the moon, I can't tell you how to get from Boston to San Francisco to Boston. But if I'm sitting in a ditch in San Francisco, I'm too detailed, I still don't know. So you have to be reasonably detailed. Not too detailed, not very little detail, reasonably detailed. Again, a little bit of fuzzy answer there, but a reasonable detail which can tell a reader that your assumptions are right or wrong, right? The biggest thing that we get when we are to make a plan for ourselves, we get too wrapped up, we get very emotional, we get very positive. I'm very optimistic. My drug trial will go right in the first time, and everything will get approved at a very fast pace. Well, guess what? Reality hits, and things may be different. So you have to be objective with your own plan. Don't be too excessively optimistic. Don't be excessively pessimistic. Be objective. Be real. With what kind of time, what kind of people it will take. And you should, at all points in time, a financial plan is basically telling you in the bargain that there are some consumers of cash. People's salary, rent, vendors, software, tables, chairs, computers. These are all what I call consumers of cash. These things require and consume the cash of your company. And obviously there are sources of cash on one side. And sources of cash are obviously investor money. It could come in as equity, which is venture investing, as we all know it. It could be a bank loan. It could be a government grant. Or, if you're lucky enough that you have something to sell early on, the best source of money is revenue. That you are selling something and you're making some revenue, and from that profit, you're growing the company further. So So a plan will tell you where the sources of the money are, what are the consumers of the money, and how are you getting to profitability, etc., etc. In a good plan, always understand what your fixed cost versus variable costs are. Fixed costs are like, if you think people are fixed cost, no, people are, if you think people are a variable cost, no, people are a fixed cost. It's very difficult to hire people. So you can't treat them variable thing. If the business is down, let me fire everybody. When the business picks up next month, I'll rehire everybody. It doesn't work like that. Variable costs are that can go up and down with the ups and downs of the business. If you have a manufacturing line of some sort, you can shut down the manufacturing line, or you can reduce the capacity of the line. That is a variable cost. But people, rent, or the software tools you use, your email system, your Dropbox box, these are all fixed costs. They are there no matter if you sell something or not. So understand what the fixed cost versus variable cost differences are in your model, because guess what? You're going to hit ups and downs in the business every day. So you have to be able to control your variable costs and fixed costs as you go along. Variable, obviously, there's greater chance of controlling them. Fixed costs, once you incur them, now they're kind of fixed for a year or two, so be careful. So know the difference between fixed cost and variable cost so that you can control them better. Whatever you plan for today, for next 6 months, 12 months, most likely it's not going to happen. It'll be slightly off or maybe dramatically off the plan. So in your financial plan, there should always be a variable in a way that it allows for scenario play. That if we don't get approval, if we don't hit the revenue target, if I cannot hire the engineers I want, what will happen? What are the consequences of that? Revenue shortfall, or product plan going for longer, or if I don't find the right lab in which I can test, and then I have to move my testing somewhere else, the cost will differ. So what are the different scenarios that can happen to your company? They should be easily modelable. The idea is, if it is easily modelable and changeable, you will actually go through the exercise of doing it, and that will give you the practice that when real life happens, how should I react? Right? What you don't want is to get caught flat-footed when real life happens. Like COVID caught a lot of people flat-footed. There were no plans for sudden shutdown of offices or sudden shutdown of travel, and hence there was so much damage to businesses. But if there were businesses who had thought of that, they will have contingency plans in place, and they will change their model, and they will change their functioning to survive whatever the difference is. So have different scenarios, have contingency plan, and that'll give you an idea of how to react when things don't go right. You can make a financial plan in your head. If you're a genius with 185 IQ, sure, but that's no good because you can't convey it to everybody or other people. So best thing is to have a plan on paper, and I don't mean physical piece of paper. I mean an Excel type tool. Like it or not, Excel is the tool of the business. There are many more complicated tools also, but Excel is the simplest one. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, you have to learn it. That's the true reality of life. So what you're doing in a planning process, which I talked a little bit already, is you're constructing a company. I call it fast evolution. That we are going to create this baby called my company, and we are going to grow this baby 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the next 1 hour. 1 year, what the company looks like. 2 years, what the company looks like. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Will it look like that in 5 years? We don't know, but at least today we have a plan. So you are evolving the company, you're growing the company, you're constructing the company from scratch in the next 1 hour, right? General thing. So there is a lot of work involved. There's a lot of, scenarios you have to make. There is a lot of lists you have to make. So don't get too worried about, I don't know Excel, or I don't know where to go. The first thing I say is show up and start writing down. Make a lot of lists. What will my product need? People, 10 engineers, 2 salespeople, 1 customer service, 1 accountant, blah, blah, whatever, right? Make a list of everything and just dump it down. I mean, if I show you my financial planning, which I do for a few companies, here's a sample for you. These are financial plans for various companies in which I've just written down a bunch of lists that things have to be done. And we will then codify this thing into a financial plan. It takes time. There is an abstract thought process at a high level, then it slowly, whittles down into concrete things that you can do. So always have a partner with you, somebody to spar with, somebody to, tell you you're wrong, somebody to tell you you're smoking, somebody to basically make sure that you don't go completely off the rails, right? Like any kid growing up, this company has to grow up in balance. And what I mean by balance is there is a certain size of the head, there is certain size of the torso, the arms are this, the legs are this. So the body, the company, the full body has to be in balance. You can't have 1 inch head and 3 feet, 4 feet of arms, right? You look like a very weird creature. Similarly, a company has to be in balance. You have certain number of engineers. After a certain number of engineers, you need engineering managers. After you have your R&D department, you start selling. You have number of salespeople. If you have one salesperson and you tell me your revenue grow from 1 million to 10 million, obviously one salesperson is not selling everything. So you say, okay, every salesperson has a quota. So there is this what I call ratios. Ratios is proportion of one thing to the other. This is what keeps the company in balance. That one salesman can sell $1 million every year, or $1 million worth of services or goods every year. So if I need 10 million revenue in second year, I should have 10 salespeople. So have various kinds of ratios. That if I have 10 million revenue or I have 100 customers, I can't have one customer service person. Every customer service person can handle 5 clients or 2 million revenue. So as you grow, the number of customer service goes up, number of sales grows up. If you have lots of engineers and no QA, then you have a problem. So you understand there is various kinds of ratios that you have to make. And and if I'll at the end I'll give you a template also of a model in which we've done all of this. It'll be easy starting point for you. I can send this out. I'll give it to Mike. He can give it to all of you. But the idea is a balanced company whose head, arms, legs are all in some proportion. These are the ratios. Make a lot of ratios. And there may be some company specific ratios in your field, in your technology. Understand what those ratios are and codify them in the model, right? So as I said, all models plans start with a blank piece of paper. Just come, write all your lists down, and understand that in the beginning you are not making a financial model, but what I call you're making an operating model. To tell me that you have 1 million revenue is not a good answer, right? What I need to know is you're going to sell to 10 customers, $100,000 each, and this is what those customers will be doing. This is what a customer looks like. So there are operating metrics at the bottom, right? You build your company on operating metrics, and a financial plan multiplies all operating metrics with a dollar amount and creates a financial plan. For example, don't tell me your salary cost is going to be $100,000. Is it 2 engineers costing $50,000 each? Or is it 10 engineers costing $10,000 each? Or is 20 engineers costing $5,000 each? So make your plan, financial plan, starting from an operating plan, from an operating metrics-based plan, right? So like I went back to the revenue. If revenue is $1 million from one customer, the selling is different type. If the revenue is $1 million from 10,000 customers, then your selling is a different type. The 10,000 customer needs a lot of marketing and selling people. But if you want to sell one deal of $1 million, you need a different kind of sales setup. So think in terms of tangible things that you control when you're building the company. You don't control the revenue. You control the number of deals you close. You control the average size of the deal. So focus on that. And then we'll multiply the two. Average size of deal, number of deals is equal to revenue. So the reason I focus on operating is, number one, most entrepreneurs, most founders think in terms of operating stuff. And number two, you don't control the financials, you control the operations. So if you have to bring down your salary costs, you don't say drop everybody's salary because we have to cut 30%. You figure out who's getting what salary. And if I have to cut in my scenario 2 or scenario 3, I have to cut back my engineering, you ought to know which part of engineering will you cut. So hence you having knowledge of operating metrics will guide your operating manual, operating tactics of the company as the company is growing. All right. So on day-to-day basis, it is the operations you control, not the financials. In the operations, everything has a price. Operating metric multiplied by the price of that metric is equal to the financial metric. So think operational metrics and grow the company and make the company that way. Obviously, if you have made a plan, which I hope all of you do, then you have to track your financials as the life goes. Now, remember, the plan was the map you had. You made a map, and the real life is the real terrain of the world. We have to make sure that the real terrain in this case is actually being built out after the map is built out. It's a little backwards than the analogy, because in the real life, terrain comes into being first and the maps come into being later to tell you what the terrain is. In our case, the financial map comes into being first and the terrain slowly grows under the map. So for you to know that your financial plan and financial projections are on track, you have to know what you're spending in real life. If you said you have 100,000 salary and 20,000 rent, is that what reality is in January, February, March? Or did we deviate from that? Was the rent more or less? Is my salaries more or less? So have clean books, have some professional do it. As much as everybody thinks, I know math and I can do accounting, there is a certain discipline to that. There is a certain, and not everything is very high level. The discipline can be at a very bookkeeper level. Make sure all the receipts are there. Make sure all entries are classified correctly, etc., etc., etc. Have somebody do it for you. Make it somebody's job. Don't say accounting is my office manager's or my job on Saturday morning. I guarantee you that'll land you in trouble. Because if it's your second job or a third job, entrepreneurs have multiple jobs in a company, I understand. But if it's your second or a third job, you will never pay enough attention to it and you'll end up in a mess. I guarantee you that. I've seen that enough number of times. I have worked with hundreds of companies. I've worked with 1,000, maybe a little over 1,000 entrepreneurs. And I can give you example after example. When they stop paying attention to their books, they don't know where the money is coming from. They don't know where the money is going. Is there a runaway expense? Is there leakage in the company? In case I have to change, I have to pivot, and if I have to take a left turn or right turn, what expense do I control? How do I control it? Right? Expense control doesn't mean that I'll stop wiring money to anybody. There can be, and I'll talk of another slide, there can be many exits of money, right? If you give a credit card to employee, that is exit of money. If you are reimbursing expense reports, that is exit of money. If you give authority to people to sign contracts, that is exit of money. So to understand at a detailed level, how the company is running on the accounting and finance side, have an accountant, ask them detailed questions, take 1 hour, 2 hours at the end of the month to ask detailed questions to your accountant, right? Understand your budget versus actual. The way budget versus actual works is, if something goes off, whether it is in the positive sense or the negative sense, if something is off plan, that's a warning to you that some assumption went wrong. If salaries are too low, maybe your assumption on the salary per person was wrong. If salary is too low, maybe you didn't hire the number of people you thought you would hire. And what's the impact of that not hiring? Right? Is my product plan now further extended? I can't go to market early enough because I didn't hire enough people. So any deviation from the plan is an alarm bell. Okay. The way I look at it, physically, I like to physically manifest things in my head. Your map is like the guardrails around a train. A train is going on the track, and when it starts to wobble, the top of the train starts to touch the guardrails. There are guardrails on the side. When it touches, it starts to make metallic noise. That's a warning to you that the train is about to overturn, or there is too much wind. Slow down the train, or stop the train, or whatever you have to do. Make sure you don't go off track, because getting a company back on track is a difficult task, rather than make sure you don't go off track. And this is your accountant's job to ring these bells. You should be able to ask the right questions if your accountant is not giving you proactive advice, which we believe we like in our companies, the first thing we say, we don't sugarcoat stuff. Numbers don't lie. We will tell you things as it is, like it or not. We will ring the alarm bell, right? So you should be able to ask your the questions to the accountant, and the accountant should have anticipated the questions and come up with the answers, right? If your accountant says, "Oh, let me look at it. I don't know why that happened. I'll come back and let me check and come back." These are all bad answers from an accountant. Okay, they should be very crisp answer. Yes, no, I know why it happened. Why didn't it happen? What do we do to control it, etc., etc. Right? This is the thing that I talked of a little earlier. I'll not go over it in detail, but make sure 2 pairs of eyes look at every money going out. I don't care it's going out on a credit card, bank wire, contract signing, whatever the exit is, there should be 2 pairs of eyes looking at it, even if you're the founder. Even your own expense, somebody else should look at it. You don't know when you'll make a mistake. So be careful, be aware that you're human and you'll make a mistake. And your books should be tracked in some system. Bank statements are not an accounting system. Google Sheets, Excel is not an accounting system. I don't care what you use. There are enough cheap, free available. Xero you can do free. QuickBooks has a cheaper version. There are n number of systems out there that you can use. Use an accounting system. It'll save your day someday. Okay? And spend that 1-2 hours at the end of the month with your accountant to go over your actual financials and go over the variations with the plan and see if there is any corrective action is needed. So this is my advertising slide. Books is a lot of work. It takes a lot of skills. There's low-level bookkeeping. There is high-level board management. No one human being can do it, right? You can't be a bench chemist and a guy who writes the FDA application and a guy who can raise money. You can't be all 3 of those. You have to give those jobs to different people. Similarly, in accounting, the same person can't be the CFO and the controller and the bookkeeper and the guy who does the taxes and the guy who issues option letters and gets everything signed and the guy who presents at the board meeting. So different levels of people are required. So a company, and you can go hire anybody that you want, but a company that can provide you different skills at different times is very important. Because in the beginning, none of the jobs is a full-time job in accounting. All the jobs, you need 5 hours of accounting, 2 hours of controller, and 1 hour of CFO every 3rd month. Where do you find that human being? It's very difficult. You as the founder, the CEO, I assuming all of you are founders on this call. In my view, having been a founder for the last 15 years of multiple companies, as a founder, your job is only one: selling. You are selling to customers. You are selling to investors. You are selling to employees why they should come join you. You are selling to vendors, partners. You are telling everybody, you're the evangelist. You're telling everybody why your company is great and they should partner with you, they should buy from you, etc., etc. So don't let anything deviate from your, let me call it prime directive, is to sell. Right? And if you can't sell or you don't want to sell, then take a different role in the company. Step aside from a CEO role. CEO's role is selling. You may be the best chemist or you may be the scientist in the company, and take that scientist role: chief scientific officer, chief medical officer, whatever, CIO, whatever you want to call yourself. Leave the selling to the CEO. As a CEO, that's all what they should do. And that's it. I had half an hour. I think I met the goal, right? I finished in half an hour. That's correct. 6:32.
That is super accurate for the timing. Not even 1 minute more. Thanks, Lars. Cindy, for the great presentation. So we definitely learned a lot from the presentation. So are there any questions?
Mike, I will send you I'll send you my template of the model. You can distribute to this group, whoever wants, no problem. And if they want help from me and my group, let me know. I have a 20% modeling team. We'll help you guys out. Don't worry about it.
Okay, really appreciate it. Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Actually, I got a question from the audience saying that a lot of my understanding is he wanted to ask like the threshold for the outsource service, because we all understand for a small startup, probably we don't need to have a financial service for ourselves. I mean, we don't have to have a CFO for the startups, but for a very big company, we must have a CFO for ourselves. The problem, the question is to what size we should consider about having our own financial services, like the in-house.
So there is no hard cutoff. Depends upon the financial complexity of the company. I mean, you don't need a CFO for a very long time, because a full-time CFO is a very expensive person. It'll cost you 300 things. At least I'm talking US. It'll cost you about $250,000 to $300,000 salary. There is medical expenses. There is payroll expenses. The next thing you know, CFO lands up costing you about $400,000 a year. So you have to make sure really that you can afford that person. CFOs are expensive, and they're kind of nearly all overhead. They add a lot of strategic value to the company. But what you should have from the beginning, the very beginning, early days, you should have a good bookkeeper. I don't care who that bookkeeper is, but that's not you, the founder. That's not you, the CEO. But you need a competent bookkeeper so that all the transactions are accounted for on an ongoing, timely basis. So that if you have to look in your books and see where is my money going, that should not be a struggle. That should be a one click in our accounting software saying, what does my income statement look like? That's what it looks like. So for early stage startups, we work with startups from about 2% to about 150 people. Full-time staff starts to come in at about 100 people, maybe 80 people, and then we hand off the books and the work back to the company.
Okay, thank you. I also have a question for myself, actually, because for most of the startups, including the companies spin out of universities or institutes, I mean, in general, the groups are very strong in sciences, like in academia, they're super strong.
Yeah.
But for the marketing and the budgeting and the financing, actually, it's very hard to find partners, or very hard to find the right spot, right people to be collaborating. So, are there any advice that you can give?
So, the way I look at it, no startup succeeds because of one single person. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody may be very strong at science or whatever, their idea may be, your patent or IP may be theirs. But startup is a group game. You need to have a strong team, and it goes back to the selling part. That if you're even the scientist, or you're the gearhead of the company, you have to go and find a founder, a co-founder, who is complementary to you. You may be the scientist, we need some hard-headed business sales type guy who is a co-founder. And give them the co-founder status, give them good equity so that they also have their life invested in your company. If you are only a single founder with majority of the equity and everybody else is an employee in sales, marketing, finance, accounting, customer service, etc., that company is not going to do well. Because there are a lot of decisions that have to be made at a founder level, at an owner level, at an equity holder level. Hence, I always say that have a very strong co-founding team, 2 minimum, maybe 3, maybe 4. 5, 6, 7, that gets too large a team. There is infighting, and then there is all sorts of politics. But 2 to 3 founders, co-founders is I think mandatory. In fact, I know of some decent, name brand investors who will never invest in a company in which there is only one founder. They said the risk is too high. So find a good co-founder with complementary skill set. I think that's the first step of your selling. That can you find one? Mm-hmm. And if you are part of an accelerator of some sort, you can go to the management there, or there are generally enough. What should we call it? Meetups or something where they put together people of in the same industry or same but of different skill sets, that you can find something, a speed dating, if you will. Pick your partner carefully, but there are enough of such venues these days where you can find co-founders.
Okay, thank you, Sandeep. It's very useful advice and a very wonderful talk. Thanks for your time tonight.
All right, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll hand it over to Sumant. I think. Let me
Okay.
see.
The second talk tonight is going to be given by Veronic Health. Veronic Health provides real-time remote monitoring and detection of health deterioration due to the viral and chronic disease, including COVID-19, if I'm understanding correctly. Tonight, Smooth is going to talk about it. Smith, you can share your screen.
Yeah, my screen is shared now. Can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yeah, it's great, and you sounds wonderful.
Okay, great. So thanks, Mike, and nice talk, Sandeep. Thanks for that lead-in, and thank you all for having me here. So I want to tell you all a little bit about this Austin, Texas company that I co-founded with a group of really elite physicians, scientists, mathematicians from around the world who have been spending their time for the last 7 to 10 years really trying to tackle the problem of automated technological detection of health deterioration, flare-ups of respiratory illness at home. Okay, and so what that really means is a class of illnesses in the viral space, influenza, coronaviruses, and of course, everyone's familiar with COVID-19 and the devastation of the last year. And in the chronic respiratory space, these are things like COPD, asthma, uncurable illnesses that really affect people's breathing. So why are we interested in these? Because they are infectious, dangerous. They're the leading killers of people outside of heart disease in the world, even more than cancer, unless you put all the cancers into one bucket. And in particular, these illnesses, they are marked by specific health episodes at home. Okay, so in the case of COVID-19 and influenza, people who are diagnosed with these illnesses too late, right, will tend to be spreaders of the illness. And in the case of COVID-19, in fact, very specific people have these really dramatic health deterioration events, okay, and which is why you saw massive death among very specific people and not so much among others. Similarly with COPD and asthma, exacerbations of these illness, essentially flare-ups of these illness at home that people don't catch early, essentially, and they result in maybe tens of thousands of dollars of hospital visits per day, tens of thousands of dollars per day in hospital visits or death, as opposed to maybe something as simple as taking a puff of your inhaler and going to sleep, if you could just catch the evidence of these events early. Okay. Employers, payers, insurance companies, these are the ones who are paying the hundreds of billions of dollars for the bills for these flare-ups of these events. And they're also paying significant amount of money in lost productivity, absenteeism among their employees. Healthcare workers, as you know, particularly in the last year, are exposed to these infections and of course are in danger on their own. Okay, and this is just sort of a brief snapshot of the spending, the sheer scale of spending. And I want to highlight that the spending that's noted here among employers, payers, device companies, this is just on the problem of avoidable health deterioration events in viral and chronic respiratory illness. Okay, if you look at the whole cost of care of all these illnesses, it'd be indescribably large. Well, it'd be describably large, but it'd be a whole lot larger than this. So what was our answer? What is the technology that we built? Well, we at our core are an algorithms company. Okay, so we've merged the best traditions of disease management, machine learning, and clinical science to build prediction algorithms that take the kind of health data that most people have available at their home, symptom information, oximetry, heart rate, things that you can get from your Apple Watch or from a clip-on device that you can buy at Walmart. We take this kind of information that's available at home and we interpret it. And we use that interpretation to catch flare-ups of these illnesses or infectiousness of these illnesses early. So we do early detection and then we counsel people on what to do about it early, whether to go to the hospital, call a doctor, maybe increase your controller medications. And then we provide a framework for continuously monitoring these illnesses for a long time. So early detection, early intervention, and long-term care. And these algorithms are deployed via APIs. So what that means is that people can engage with our algorithms through a mobile app, a web app, a tablet, a desktop. You can put these prediction models under payroll softwares, enterprise softwares, HR software. Okay, it's software and hardware agnostic. And so rather than disrupt people's processes and give them a new piece of hardware, a new software to play with, we can put our stuff right underneath the things that they already have. We partner with essentially the strongest minds in all of the disease spaces and in AI really in the world. A lot of our mathematics is done in concert with Oxford University, with a former postdoctoral team of mine when I was there. A lot of our clinical testing has been done at Mount Sinai, University of Michigan, Vancouver Clinic in Washington, Swedish out in Washington. And so to make this a little bit real, let me sort of show you like what one of these products could look like. All right, so this is an example of our institutional early detection and wellness product. Okay, this is a product for employers and institutions where effectively they can monitor the health and infection risk of the members of their organization without actually seeing or getting access to any of the health information of those members. Okay, and you may be aware that a lot of regulatory guidelines have crept up over the months about getting people back to work, and sort of suggesting and mentioning that really having some kind of safety precaution, including symptom check and monitoring at the workplace, would be essential. Okay, and the way this works is if you're an employee, you have this software dashboard that's giving you access to tracking of your vital signs, oxygen saturation, heart rate, temperature. It's got summary lung scores. It's telling you how compliant you've been with checking in and monitoring your illness. And you've got essentially a doctor sitting underneath this software, which is our algorithms. And it's not just an internist, but these are disease-specific algorithms we built. So it's like having a pulmonologist, a cardiologist, an endocrinologist, an infectious disease doctor, the specialist in the illness sitting underneath here to diagnose in an on-demand fashion when you might be having a flare-up of your illness. Okay, and this is sort of a picture of what that might look like on a mobile app, very fast process. These algorithms will take in some of your symptoms, some of your vital signs. It's incorporating a rich set of baseline profile information that you would have put in when you first enrolled: age, height, weight, gender, baseline lung function. Okay, essentially a targeted set of curated variables that specifically match the illness that you're trying to address. Okay, what makes us different? Well, I think I mentioned, of course, the hardware agnostic API approach that allows us to really slip underneath a lot of products and consumer existing technologies. But if you look at the pillars of what makes a great healthcare technology, what you want is strong adoption. You want people to use it. You want to know that it's accurate and sophisticated, and you want to know that when people use it, it's actually making a difference to their health. And so we've done comparisons of our algorithm to clinical specialists. In this case, this is a comparison to a group of pulmonologists in diagnosing 100 essentially patient vignettes, patient scenarios. And we compared our algorithm performance to those physicians, and we showed that the algorithm handily outdiagnosed those physicians in identifying the consensus opinion on when an individual patient was having a health deterioration event and what they should do about it. Okay, we've pitched such algorithms into clinical studies where patients have tried to use web apps, and we've shown really just a few minutes of use per week among a set of asthmatics in this published paper of clinically significant improvement in their asthma control. Okay, and so keep in mind, I mean, this is a very simple piece of technology that they're using, and we're talking about a few minutes a week, not per day. And we saw their control of their asthma symptoms go up in a clinically significant manner, and it kept going up over that 6-month period. Okay, this was an organic use trial by a lot of older and sicker obstructive lung disease patients using our apps. And we saw remarkable retention even after about 56 weeks. To see 28% 30-day retention of these mobile apps after 56 weeks is incredible. You don't see that kind of thing among mobile apps and across multiple verticals, let alone healthcare, which is notoriously difficult. Okay, and so we make stuff that works. It's accurate, it works, and people like to use it. This is sort of one cool feature too. You know, you might be familiar with this so-called silent hypoxia for COVID-19 patients. Okay, so lots of people are asymptomatic, but one trait among many asymptomatic patients is that they have a precipitous drop in their oxygen saturation. Okay, and when you have a system that's actually taking care of that, the system can flag that, even for people who aren't necessarily showing symptoms. Okay, and this is some more clinical studies from some previous publications show that not only does use of these apps increase control of symptoms, but it reduces anxiety, improves quality of life, improves compliance with controller medications. And so this technology works. We have two primary products, okay, that emerge from a highly iterative lean startup methodology for product development that really aggressively rotates between testing, prototyping, and customer validation. We talk to a lot of people, we test this in patients, and we prototype and we rapidly cycle. One of these products is the SaaS type institutional software that I described before. But really our core business is, as I described, the APIs. These algorithms are our core, which we can put behind anything. We can put it into an insurance company's mobile app. We can put it into an employer's HR system. We can make these early detection algorithms available to improve health outcomes in a broad set of areas. How do we make money? We are primarily a subscription company. Okay, and so our market entry through our SaaS product is primarily through digital marketing. We market to small and medium companies for those organizations to utilize the software and pay us on a per member per month basis. The algorithms themselves, we tend to market these to larger companies. Our market entry is really through commercial pilots and commercial trials. So, for example, we have 2 leading engagements with the second largest health insurance company in the world. And of course, successful completion of a pilot with them would then manifest in a subscription type agreement, which would either be API consumption basis or a per member per month subscription basis. One important point too is that the data collected by Veronix in itself is unique and it's highly valuable because it collects data at home, not at the hospital. So electronic medical records are collecting data when people are already sick. This kind of data collection actually lets you track the natural progression of illness. And it's not just collecting activity or oxygen saturation data. That kind of data can go up and down for any number of reasons. But when you couple that data with symptoms and the profile of an individual, now you've got the means to really predict health deterioration, track the entire course of that deterioration. Okay. How have we done? What kind of progress have we made? Well, we've got tens of thousands of users globally. We've got about 15 companies and schools signed up, lots of clinical testing partners, and really advanced discussions on our API product with some of the larger IT and payer groups in the country. We've raised $250K in early angel investment. We have a lot of pending non-dilutive grant capital for our innovation research work, and we've made the most progress in the chronic lung and heart space so far. The company is highly scalable, and it scales with great margin, mostly because if our primary revenue source is headless. We don't have physicians in our workflow. We don't have hardware in our workflow. And we don't have support in our workflow because we're putting our algorithms underneath the existing systems of many of these institutions. And so if they're deployed in those institutions, many of the data warehousing and privacy components are on their side. Much of the support is on their side. And we really fit in giving them what they need and what we're really good at, which is understanding disease deterioration. And these figures, while they might look ambitious, this is very conservative because the number of people who have these illnesses or at risk of these illnesses is so massive. And this is, by the way, the result of capturing a very small portion of just one of the larger clients that we're already working with right now. Okay. We will be raising, we have a target raise of about $3 million for Q2 and Q3 of this year. And this sort of gives a breakdown, in light of some of the financial modeling discussions that Sandeep gave earlier. We have, of course, detailed breakdowns of where that money would be spent, and what does it pay for? Well, I mean, sort of here's a timeline of what it pays for, why we're paying for it, what kind of milestones we would get to. So over a 2-year marker, that money would cover a mix of commercial pilot, iterative product development across the different disease spaces and categories, execution of a few of our pilot scenarios that are already in play, and then, of course, a mix of business development, clinical partnerships, and testing, and new device partnerships. This is a snapshot of our team. And the 3 primary founders are myself, Boutros Tora, a very talented biologist, Shriram Ramanathan, a veteran of the consumer technology, consumer health technology and AI spaces. We have a fabulous set of physicians who we work with. This is a small sample. Actually, it's probably about 3 to 4 times as many who are advisors or supporters on our clinical testing, and we have a great data science and operations group. And one sort of last image to end this pitch with is just to talk about what makes Veronix really a special company. And this is a pyramid that was put together by McKinsey and Company in a recent. I may have read it in the Wall Street Journal, but it's been disseminated through various digital health news forums. But this is a company that scales in every direction, across disease categories, across geographies, across hardware, across software. It has proven clinical value, and we've done our homework. We've beaten the hell out of our products, scrutinized them. We've compared them to physicians. We've tested them in patients. We've tested them in organic use. And we know that it actually improves people's health. And we know that it's going to save capital. People like using it. The value proposition is extremely clear. It's solving the diagnostic problems that no other technology right now is doing, particularly in these disease spaces. And we have some pretty remarkable talent across multiple disciplines and across geographies. And one thing that maybe not be captured enough in this pyramid also is that there's IP here. The methods that we've used, these methods that have gone through peer review, have been published, that merge clinical science with traditional machine learning. One, they get us around traditional data access issues. We don't train our algorithms off of EMR records. We have IP around converting global clinical characteristic data into vignettes for training prediction models. This is highly sophisticated technology. It's real IP. It's not easy to duplicate. And is scalable. Appreciate the time. I hope I didn't. Pretty decent, right? I think I got into that 20 minutes too, yeah?
Yeah, the time is perfect.
Great. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great presentation. Are there any questions from the audience? You can just unmute yourself, say it directly, or send it to me. I got a question from the audience, from the outside channel, saying do we have how are we getting the vitals? Like the vitals sometimes is very important for the chronic signal, for the chronic diseases or for COVID-19. But are we including those information in our systems?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's 2 answers to it. One, the algorithms have actually been trained very robustly to return great predictions even when you don't have the vitals. But the vitals help quite a lot. So there are certain continuous monitoring devices that'll directly sync with our web apps, in which case the user doesn't provide them. They just have to be wearing the device. The user can also provide them. And in fact, patient studies have shown that particularly for the simpler devices, they prefer to just plop on an oximeter. 4 seconds later, it'll come to them. And then, of course, if they're using, depending on the client, right? So if they're using an Apple Watch or Samsung Watch, and they have Apple Healthcare Kit, or I forget what the Samsung health database is called. But if they're using one of these sort of larger brand name watches, the data can be gleaned from their local storage databases.
And also another question is about the market range. So he is saying for the monitoring system, it's more useful for old people instead of a chronic disease cohort. So maybe old people has a bigger market in this application. So do you agree with those comments? And is there any way we can choose a different cohort according to the needs?
Yeah, so COPD and heart failure type patients, they tend to be much older, and the expensive exacerbators among them are the exacerbators among them are the expensive ones. And so I'd say that comment is exactly right for the remote monitoring type offering for such folks. However, asthmatics are of all ages, and influenza and COVID-19, influenza for sure is robust across ages, and COVID-19 is reasonably robust across adults, even though it has different outcomes. So, the technology actually has been tested most rigorously among older patients and patients who are not likely to adopt. And we've shown very strong promise among them, interestingly enough. However, we don't discriminate on age. And it's not the case that they're necessarily the most expensive for these specific diseases. It's the people that are the most susceptible to health deterioration. So that can be comorbid people. That could be the driving differentiator as opposed to purely age, right? Risk factors and comorbidities.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of overlaps between old people and people with people already with some chronic disease. So,
correct. That's true. That's true.
Okay. Thanks a lot for your talk. Is there any other questions? So far, it seems like that's it. Okay, Smith, thanks a lot for your participating. It's a good pleasure to have you tonight.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And feel free, the contact information is there. We're happy to field any other questions if you think of them later.
Yeah, if there's any questions from the interested audience, I'll probably connect you guys directly so we can discuss offline. If there is anyone who is interested, just let me know. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Tonight is going to be an end, and thanks a lot, Sandeep and Smith. Thank you both for the great presentation. So I think if I'm correct, we still have one QA event left for our last event for this series of courses. I mean, we don't know the time yet, but hopefully we can see you guys in around 2 weeks. And we have our final closure event for the whole series. Thanks a lot for your participating, and have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Good being there. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.